I'm Effie, and this is What Effie Reads. This video is going to be my first week-long reading vlog. Because I'm a bit chaotic, I've decided that for this week I'm going to let dice control my reading. I'm usually a mood reader, so this could be a really interesting week. Before we begin, I want to note that I imagine there have been other YouTubers, booktubers, etc. that have already done this concept, especially as there is a book that has this whole concept called The Dice Man, which I read years ago and really loved. Although, one, I don't know if it holds up, I don't know if it's problematic. And two, I do remember it getting really weird and chaotic, which maybe that's how this week goes. So I don't know if anyone else has done this already, but probably. I haven't seen their videos. This is just something that I decided I wanted to do. Based on the first rolls that I got from the dice, I've just read Bullet Train for 85 minutes. I think it's far too early in the week to say how I think this experiment challenge is going. However, I do think that if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't have been able to focus for 85 minutes on this book. I'm maybe 65% of the way through, and I have no clue what's going on, and there's some questionable characterizations. But I'm glad that I'm making progress on it and that the dice forced me to make progress. Now to go and see how long I get as a break. Hopefully I get a decent break because I'd like to chill for a bit, get dressed, and then I guess we'll see. The last dice roll that I did said that I need to start a new book, and based on the dice, I am going to start Through Her Eyes by Sophie Fay. It's a book that I've had for maybe a year, so I'm looking forward to starting it. I then rolled the dice for how long I need to read for, and it's 48 minutes. However, Gavin's sprints start in less than 48 minutes. So I'm going to read up until they start, and then I will do the remaining time during the first sprint of the live. And then I will carry on, as I said, just rolling every time to see what I need to read. I hope that makes sense. Now I should probably make a start on this book.
Never roll back, I won't go back. Don't wanna waste time with you. Wanted you so bad, didn't hold back, and now I can't forget you. You've got me climbing mountains in my head. Tell me all the little things you never said. And it's clear to see your love for me is dead. And I want you to know
the first of Gav's sprints done. I got reasonably far into Through Her Eyes. I think it's going to be quite a quick read, but it just depends on if the dice let me read more of it this week. And then the next roll was to continue reading Through the Neverwoods, which I'm really enjoying. It seems to be almost like an imagined modern sequel of Peter Pan. It's really intriguing so far, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a lot darker than Peter Pan or if it is going to be quite light and fuzzy in tone. For this chunk of time, I rolled to start a new book, and it was an audiobook, The Evolution by the Fletchers. So I'm going to pop that on, probably do a bit of housework, catch up on my Bujo, that kind of thing, and I'll check back in a little bit.
Wanted you so bad, didn't hold back, and now I can't forget you. You've got me climbing mountains in my head. Tell me all the little things you never said. And it's clear to see your love for me is dead. And I want you to know I'ma let you go.
I'm almost to the end of this first day of dice controlling my reading. I've had to add a lot of new books to my TBR, but I'm also really appreciating that it's forcing me to pick up books that have been on my shelves for way too long, basically. I'm getting a little bit worried about how long my currently reading list is getting. But I also know that I only have 5 dice, so I can only make my TBR a finite length. So I think as the week progresses, I might end up being forced to DNF books, although hopefully I will actually get to the end of things that I'm reading as well. I am feeling a little bit tired at the moment and I would like to go to bed, but I've done my next few dice rolls and none of them are ebooks, which is the only format that I can read in bed. So I think what's going to happen is I either keep reading until I get to an ebook, or if I get to the point that I'm so tired that when I go to bed, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I will fall asleep, then I will just get to the end of the portion of reading time and pick up again from tomorrow. It's now day 2 of this experiment, challenge, whatever you want to call it, where I let dice control my reading. Yesterday went pretty much just as chaotically as I expected. My pile of currently reading is humongous now, so these are all the physical books that I now have on my currently reading list. I also have 3 ebooks and 3 audiobooks on that list. I'm hoping that the dice rolls today allow me to start taking books off my currently reading list, but I'm not optimistic. As I touched on yesterday, if it continues growing and growing, I am going to have to start DNFing books, although they will probably be temporary DNF books, and I may put dice rolls in to determine that. I'm not quite sure. I did decide to simplify the way the dice rolls are working. So yesterday went a little bit differently to how today's going to go. Just for right now, I've only been up for about half an hour, so I'm not going to start my reading just yet. I think I'm going to watch a bit of YouTube, maybe watch a few videos on Skillshare, and then hopefully get dressed and get cracking with today's reading. Wish me luck! So far today is going just as chaotically as yesterday. I've had 2 rolls for my reading so far. The first one was 55 minutes, which gave me a really good chunk to do some reading, but the second one was 5 minutes. So I felt like I was just getting back into the story and I had to stop again. So now I've got a 17-minute break as decided by the dice. I also need to do some more dice rolls, so I'm going to do that during this break, and hopefully I'll have some time to get dressed and just make myself look a bit more human. My last couple of dice rolls have treated me really, really well. I had a short one of a book that I'm currently reading, which was fine. It was long enough to get into the story. And the fact it was a current read meant that my list didn't grow anymore. And then my next roll was a 66-minute portion of an audiobook. So I took the opportunity to go down to the river for a bit of a walk, and now I get to have a bit of a break and figure out what my next dice rolls are. I'm a little bit scared since the dice have been treating me so well. So here's hoping it continues this way. But it is dice, so anything could happen. It's Wednesday, which means this is the start of my 3rd day of vlogging and letting dice control my reading. I've ended up having a lion. The radio presenter on my alarm this morning was just so interesting, so I kind of just lay in bed and listened to him for a couple of hours. I'm probably not going to dive straight into reading today. I want to catch up on some of the videos some of my favourite booktubers have put up, but just to kind of catch up on how yesterday went. I think the dice were fairly kind to me. I did have to add a few books to my list, so there's 2 more ebooks on and 1 more physical book. So my physical book pile. So these are all the physical books that I'm currently reading. And I think I've got 5 ebooks and 3 audiobooks on the go. So I can still add, I think it's 6 more books to my currently reading before I have to start DNFing books. I think what I'll probably do, since this is dice controlling my reading, is if I get to that point, I'll use dice rolls to decide which books I DNF. But obviously I can pick them up again after this week if I do DNF them and want to continue. I haven't started my reading for the day, but I thought I'd just check in because I've just been listening to the press briefing about the complications that have come up about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, I'm very much pro-vaccines, like stick it in me as soon as possible. And I like to think of myself as fairly science literate, but there's specific worries that I have Honestly, if I was offered the AstraZeneca vaccine, I don't know what I would say. Like, I'm not going to know what vaccine I will end up being given until I'm given it. And the age group that I'm in, it sounds like the JCVI is saying I won't be getting the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is perfect, especially because I have a family history of blood clots. Now, obviously, for privacy reasons, I'm not going to go into any more detail there, but I have reason to worry about the possibility of blood clots without the confounding possibility of a vaccine that, yes, it's 1 in 250,000, but maybe I'm that unlucky person. I don't know. I'm just rambling here. I just thought I'd kind of check in and put across some thoughts and feelings. It's a little after 8:30 and I feel like I haven't done any reading today. I know that isn't actually the case, but basically for the last 2 hours I've been reading a book that I'm very much meh about. The book is What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker by Gaiman Young. And I think the issue is I'm just not a fan of books that are comprised of essays. Although I'm not sure I've read much of that style of book. I read an Irby book last month, the month before, and had very similar feelings about it would capture me at times and then I'd be like, not really interested. I think this could be my first DNF of the week though, because I'd just rather be reading something else. But this isn't at all a critique of Young's work. It's just a case of it's not the kind of thing that I'm interested in reading or interested in reading right now. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, and if this book sounds like it would interest you, then you're probably going to enjoy it. It just isn't for me. I'm about a third to a quarter of the way through Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds, and I'm not okay. I didn't read the blurb for Forever Ends on Friday before reading the book and really enjoyed it and felt like it delivered more of a punch because I hadn't read the blurb. So I decided to do the same thing with Opposite of Always. And at the very start, and I mean, this is like the very, very start of the book, you've got this character called Jack who has his face down on a bonnet by a police officer, and you've got this character called Kate who's dying in what seems to be a hospital room, and that's what it's set up. And then the book kind of goes back in time and explains their story. So you don't actually know what's up with them, but you're getting hints at what's wrong. So I've got some theories about Kate and why she's a bit standoffish. And I've got some theories about where the story's going, but I really don't have much of an idea. But it's just got to this point and I was almost crying. It's it's not even like anything big's happened. It just feels like something big's about to happen. And if I wasn't doing this dice control my reading for a week, then I would probably sit down and read this book in a single sitting. And I'm kind of mad at myself that I'm doing this. But also, it's forcing me to sit and enjoy this book a lot more. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how I feel about this at the end of the week. I really hope I get a chance to finish this before the week's over. I've been really lucky that I've had quite a few dice rolls that have landed on this, so I've been able to keep picking it up. But I don't think it's a full 5 stars. I think at this point it feels like a really highly rated book, but I don't give out many 5 stars and it doesn't feel quite a full 5. But again, we'll have to see because I'm still not very far through. It's the start of the 4th day of me letting dice control my reading. My currently reading pile is starting to look really, really out of control. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to lift up all of the physical books that I'm currently reading. I've also got a lot of ebooks on the currently reading list, and I think there's 3 or 4 audiobooks. So quite a lot. I will try and pick up all my physical books on the currently reading though. Let's see. These are, there we go. These are all the physical books that I'm now currently reading. It's a lot. I think I can add 2, maybe 3 more books to my currently reading before I have to start letting the dice DNF books for me. So I definitely think that's going to happen before the end of the week. I think the most frustrating thing though is that I still haven't finished a book this week. And usually I would have finished at least 1 book by this point in the week. My plan for today is actually to start reading pretty much as soon as I finish this clip. My first roll of the day is to listen to an audiobook, so I'm going to take that time to work on a thumbnail for a video that goes live today that I completely forgot to make a thumbnail for. Sorry about all this. I just needed to get this clip filmed, really. I've finally heard back from when I'm returning to work, and it's a lot sooner than I was expecting. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut short this, what was meant to be a week-long experiment of allowing dice to control my reading. It makes me really sad because I was having a lot of fun with it and I felt like I was learning a lot about myself and sort of how I read and what kind of books I enjoy. But it's just not practical for me to keep adding more and more books to my currently reading list, knowing that I'm not going to have time to appropriately finish them. this is something that I'd really like to return to in the future. Possibly switch it up a bit. Maybe do it so that it isn't a 50-50 chance of starting a new book. Maybe it's a 1 in 6 chance. Possibly make it a month-long thing. But it definitely doesn't make sense to continue this now. I will continue this vlog, so over the next 3 and a bit days, I'm going to see how many of the books that I'm currently reading I can actually finish before I wrap things up. I am going to DNF Watching You. I read it, I want to say I had to read it for about an hour and it just wasn't gripping me. Crime from the perspective of the detective just isn't really my thing, especially because they tend to be corrupt, and who wants to read a book about a corrupt cop? I will do a full wrap up at the end of this week, but I'm just going to touch on a few of the things that I feel like I learn about myself and my reading through the few days that I was able to carry out this experiment. Probably the most major thing is that if I'm physically reading a book or an ebook, generally I find that an hour tends to be where my concentration maxes out. I can sit and read fairly continuously single books for long periods of time, but I was finding that where the dice were telling me to read for over an hour, I would start clock watching and fidgeting and not being as focused after around the hour point. Another thing that I've discovered is that an hour really is a good chunk of time to get to know whether a book's for me. So the 2 books that I've DNF'd this week both had at least an hour of my time devoted to reading them. And I feel like that's probably a fair point to go, okay, maybe this book isn't for me. Let's DNF it. I do still feel like I get a kind of FOMO from DNFing the books. So maybe I won't be able to DNF and unhaul, but I can at least feel less guilty about not continuing my reading with them. At this point, I'm just ready to put today in the bin. So, things that have made my Thursday even less fantastic. First one, I haven't read any of the Grishaverse, and now I've had some major aspects of it spoiled for me. And I don't even know which book has been spoiled for me because it used Grishaverse specific acronyms. I don't know, but it has been spoiled for me and that really annoys me. And then just a cherry on top of a fantastic day, I find out that a whole bunch of authors have decided to sign a petition saying that Tori Peters should be removed from the long list for a women's prize. And these authors have decided that they're not even going to sign their own names, so I don't know who to avoid, which is absolutely fantastic. Love it when a transphobe won't even tell you that they are transphobe, so you know to avoid them. So I'm just a ball of anger, and I have nowhere to direct my anger right now, except into just the world in general. Today today I had an appointment with the optician to get fitted for contact lenses, so this is me trying them out, seeing what I feel about them. It's very, very odd because I'm used to my glasses now, so not having these glasses on, I don't quite feel like myself, and also my vision isn't quite as good. Because I had to go out to the opticians, I haven't had much chance to do much reading today. I did finish Bullet Train, which I think my biggest issue was that the book doesn't really match up to how it's blurbed. It's blurbed as about being a competition between some killers to try and win this suitcase of money, but that's not really what the story is. Or if it is, it's in the very loosest sense. It is a translated work, so I don't know if it's just a case of something's been lost in translation. And I also read a very quick, cutesy, but slightly spooky graphic novel before bed last night called Crema, like the frothy stuff you get on the top of a cup of coffee. And that was a really quick read and a really enjoyable read. And now I'm just gonna chill for a bit. I might do a couple of hours of one of my Skillshare classes because I've been getting into them a lot. And then I think Maddie's got some kind of live later, I think. So I might see if I can tune in for that. I can't believe that I forgot that Jade has her Sebastian de Castell interview tonight. So I'm doing that instead of learning anything, because why not?
This is a question that I actually get asked a lot and I don't have an answer to, but you might. Where should people start with your books?
So Jade's live with Sebastian de Castell's just finished now. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it served its promotional purpose because as I was watching it, I went on the Waterstones website and have now ordered The Way of the Argosy, so that will be my first Sebastian de Castell, and I'm looking forward to reading it. It's almost time for me to take my contacts out, and then I need to make some tea, and I might do some reading, and that'll be me for today. Good morning. It's Saturday, and I have big plans to do nothing this weekend. Since I'm looking to go back to work fairly soon, I'd like to get my currently reading list down to something more normal. But so far, I've DNF'd one, finished one, read a book that wasn't even on my currently reading list, and that's it. I am slowly but surely making progress in Nemesis and The Swan. So hopefully I can finish that one fairly soon. I think I'm mostly concerned about my physical currently reading pile because I can see it staring at me going, why aren't you reading me? And just to make things more fun, I've woken up these past few days with sore muscles between my shoulder blades, which is making it really quite painful to do anything vaguely resembling functioning. So I am planning on doing very, very little. However, my Bridge of Souls Owlcrate box arrived today, so I would like to do an unboxing for that. So that's basically my plan. Read, if I feel up for it, do an unboxing. I really need to wash my hair. So that as well, if I feel up for it. And I guess I'll check in with you guys later. So I ended up sleeping the day away yesterday because I felt so rotten. But I have big plans today to be productive. I am pretty close to the end of Girls with Sharp Sticks. It's not a book I enjoyed, unfortunately. It's felt too predictable, and it reminded me a lot of Madam by Phoebe Wynne. And yeah, I think if you're looking for that vibe, Madam is probably more the book to read than Girls with Sharp Sticks. I've got the remainder of the last chapter and the epilogue left, and that's it. And then I think I'm going to do a little bit of filming today. Not much, just a few clips that I need to do for upcoming videos. And then try and bash out some of the shorter books that are on my April TBR of sorts, so that I can try and get back on top of the 30 books in 30 days. I'm not holding my breath that I'm going to manage, but I'm certainly going to try. And I'm also going to potter around and do a bit of housework today. So hopefully it's going to be super busy, super productive day. And I'll check in later.
Never roll back, I won't go back. Don't wanna waste time with you. Wanted you so bad, didn't hold back. And now I can't forget you. You've got me climbing mountains in my head. Tell me all the little things you never said.
I managed to finish The Sleeper and the Spindle, and it was really, really good. It wasn't quite what I expected it to be, and I felt like I was missing bits of the story. But I think that's because it ties in with Snow Glass Apples, so I'm going to go through it in my library and pick that up and read it next. I wasn't planning on reading it today, but I think it'd be interesting to see how it plays with The Sleeper and the Spindle. And as promised, here's some pictures of the beautiful artwork. Having finished Snow Glass Apples, this absolutely stunningly gorgeous book, I know that it's sort of a companion to Sleeper and the Spindle, but also not really. Like both of these books are twists on the fairy tales you think you know, but the common character between them is very, very different in both. So I'd be surprised if you're meant to assume that the character you see in both is actually the same person. Like they're not a shared universe, even if they might have someone in common. Having thought about it for a while, I do need to speak slightly in spoilers about the Sleeper and the Spindle though. So beware of spoilers for Sleeper and the Spindle. I am kind of mad now that I think about it. So the cover of the Sleeper and the Spindle very clearly looks to be sapphic. And if you've seen videos where I've talked about it before, I went into this book thinking that it was a sapphic retelling of Sleeping Beauty. It's not. Now, again, massive spoiler warning because this is the twist of the story. But the characters on the cover are the queen who has come to wake up, who she thinks is the princess, but actually this woman is the witch. So these two characters do not end up together. So it's not really a sapphic story. Like, beyond the fact that this queen is quite happy to potentially end up with another woman, and you have one kiss between these two women. That's it. So it feels a bit queerbaity, and that really annoys me because I wouldn't be surprised if people have picked up this book thinking, as I did, that it was a sapphic retelling. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I loved that there was a twist. I loved that it turned your assumptions about this story on its head. I just don't appreciate when queer characters are used in this fashion. But please let me know if you think I'm overthinking or overreacting. It just made me a little bit upset. It's about 8:45 now, so I'm going to wrap up the vlog here. Today I managed to finish Girls with Sharp Sticks. I also read The Sleeper and the Spindle, Snowglass Apples, and Through the Woods. So basically I have finished 2 books that were on my currently reading and read another 5 books that weren't even on my currently reading. So I still have a lot of books on my list going into this next week, but hopefully I can actually carve some time out and work through them. I did have a lot of fun allowing the dice to control my reading at the start of this week, and I do plan on making it a month-long thing in the future, but it'd have to be a month where there's no readathons going on because I just need that flexibility to do what I want with my reading. And I'd be really interested to hear other people's suggestions on how I can make it slightly less chaotic but still quite fun. So, bye for now.